Alright, so here's just a quick video. Hopefully this will be informative. Basically, for the pinout, this sheet shows this amphenol. So the plug end. Obviously this phone has two since it has two key rows, but it would be the same on a single. And actually the second plug of this one is a bit different because it wouldn't have this ground, and I'm unsure as to how they hooked it up. Basically, it shows the pinout though of the first plug / your only plug on the one key row phone. And tip, ring, and these numbered A leads all just go straight to the plugs. And you don't really need to worry about them because basically the plugs are just attached straight to the amphenol, or on the ITT phones they have these amphenol plugs inside, and so you can actually detach the line cord, which is kind of nice. But they should just all be attached straight to those amphenol plugs that you saw there, and then go straight to the buttons. And then the buttons will pass another tip and ring and ground it. So basically when you push a button down, it connects these numbered A leads to this master A lead, orange and white. So whenever these numbered ones touch that, it activates the line card functions, so you can put it on hold and so on. And then, of course, the lamps are also going straight to the key row. And for ITT, like I say, they usually have one lamp ground. So if you were to take a voltmeter, you might be able to check that one side of the lamp, one pin of the lamp, one side, is the same for all of them. Whereas Western Electric and other phone makers had separate lamp grounds because they were worried about the wires burning up, which is sort of smart. But ITT usually wanted to cut costs, so they only had one lamp ground to power all of the lamps. So that gives you more spares because then these lamp grounds often aren't used. And in addition to that, this phone, since it is the speakerphone type, you don't have the last two. So if you go line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 don't exist on this phone because of it has the speakerphone. So if you look at this schematic, then you can rule out the wires that they're saying are for line 8 and 9 aren't used. So those are your violet green, there's violet orange. So you can just rule those out. Basically the violet wires here at the end. And then, so hopefully that just explains a bit more of the gist of how these are all working and sort of what the wires here are. So basically, if you were going to make an amphenol plug, I don't know if you've noticed, but the amphenols have numbers in them. It's a bit hard for me to get it on camera, but if you actually look, you can see right there is 25 and 50, and there's pin 1 and 26 at this end. And that's what these numbers are referring to, is if you were to go down the line counting 26 up to 50 or 1 up to 25, that's what these are. And so that way then you can actually make a plug to get the phone to run if you want. And then I'm going to just talk about the power supply a bit. I did not catch at first that the power supply was dead. And if you look at the power supply, it is, see, it says yellow and black and red and green. And they should both be the same. I'm assuming we both have the same power supply because I don't know why ITT would make another power supply for it. So this is the correct power supply, and basically it would have yellow and black wires here and red and green wires. And the red and green ones are just right here attached to another power supply. So what I wanted to point out though is if you take a voltmeter and test for continuity across this dead one, you won't get anything because the coil burst. If you look at an AC transformer, since this is, it's alternating current, not direct current. And again, I don't know how much you know on DC versus AC, but what AC transferring power is doing is it has two coils of wire, and when you plug it into the outlet, the large coil of wire that is usually just plugged into the hot and neutral of your power prongs are wirelessly transferred to smaller coils so you get less power. So the alternating frequency goes across the coils inside of here, which is why you can sort of hear a buzzing sound sometimes with these. You can sort of hear that. So that's actually it oscillating because of its AC power from your wall plug. Anyway, the secondary coil, so one of the smaller ones, blew up. Presumably, maybe that was, it drew too much power at one point and the coil just died. Sort of like a light bulb when it burns out. So it's just, the coil is completely gone inside. So you can't connect anything there. It won't do anything for you. And when I plug this in, yellow and black are still working fine because they're on their own coil. And it may be mismatched for you. I don't know if maybe yellow and black died and red and green are still okay. But if you plug this in, it lights up, but it won't do anything. And I don't have a line plugged into this right now. But when I got this annoying thing. So it lights up, but the thing is just broke. And thing that you can sort of tell if it's a power supply issue is the off light will light up as well. And again, I'm not sure what yours is doing and sort of the symptoms of what yours is. But the off light should only light up if there's a high microphone sound. So now if I plug in this other power supply, which is basically just taking over for the dead coil, now the off light is off unless I speak really loud, because then it's picking up peaks from the microphone that's here. And so that's how it should function. And now if we unplug, okay, so I guess yellow and black, if those two are dead, you would not get any lights. But I recall you saying that it did have lights. So you could have the same issue as me, as red and green's phase is dead. Because it could light up still without that. Another thing is sometimes light bulbs will burn out in here. Because I don't want to give you false info that... don't go off of just this light bulb, because you might not see this one lighting up, but it could be the bulb is burned out too. So you might think that, oh, well, it's just the on light, but don't just go off of my word of it, because I really just recommend checking the power supply. So if you just take this off, you could see yellow and black and red and green. So that's where I want you to check, because if you have this plugged in, you can usually take a voltmeter or a light bulb across the pins and see if they're giving you power or not. And I guess another way you could test is if you unplug red and green. So if you just unscrew red and green and plug it in and then turn up the volume, if you get the squealing sound that I do, then I guess your power supply is probably fine. Because if you get the squealing sound, then that's probably your power supply is fine then. If you removed red and green and it does that when you remove it, because then I'd guess that, okay, it's probably not the power supply. So I guess just check that quick and just make sure your power supply is good. If we know for sure the power supply is good, then we can also check in here, because the AC power goes in. Usually the main source of most of these issues is power issues, and then after that it could be connectivity, but I'm assuming you're just not being able to use it at all, so it's probably power issue. Because if it was line connection issue, then you would be able to hear stuff, but it wasn't connected, so then we can check that as well if that's your issue.